So I'll just kind of throw you some myths out there. People need to be sore
right.
to get a good workout. Is that a great indicator? If they're not being sore, is it useless? Is it not worthwhile?
Yeah, that's a very common one, especially with, say like a first-time client or someone that hasn't been in the gym for a couple years. A lot of times through the workout, the question will come up: if I'm getting sore, or if I'm not getting sore, does that mean that I'm doing enough, or that I'm making progress, or that I'm growing muscle, or dropping fat,
right,
or what have you?
Hey, what's going on? Welcome to Healthy Living Wichita podcast with GoTimeTraining. I'm your host, Raymond Elliott, lead personal trainer at GoTimeTraining in Northeast Wichita, Kansas. I've been in the fitness industry for over 20 years now, and I've seen it all. This podcast cuts through all the fads and gimmicks to give you the science-based truth on all things fitness and nutrition, so you don't have to try to figure it out on your own. If you want to live happier and healthier and get the scoop on how to work out, eat right, and keep a positive mindset, you're in the right place. It's go time. Now, let's get to the show. Ready for this, Nick? So we're back with Healthy Living Wichita. So you guys might remember Nick. He's back. He's made his way back. We've allowed him to come back in here. But surprisingly, you're back in the house. No, so we really looked. It was an awesome podcast last time. So thank you for gracing with our presence again. In case some of the audience missed it, which I couldn't imagine anybody not listening to every podcast that we ever make. Hopefully no one's ever made that mistake. But if somebody has, tell us a little bit more about yourself, Nick, and we'll get rock and rolling.
So my name is Nick Jacobs. I went to the University of Louisville for exercise science. I finished up there in 2013. I worked at a couple of private gyms in Kentucky for a couple years after that, and I've been here in Wichita since November, personal training and coaching here.
Yeah. So. We also like to call him Rockstar Nick. Nick is a Rockstar of the Month, which is kind of the way that we celebrate some trainers that went above and beyond, and Nick has definitely been doing that since he's been here, so we appreciate you. So, Nick, last time we talked to you kind of about somewhat of the same subject as this. We talked about getting back into working out after the quarantine, right? Everybody was kind of anxious. The gym was just opening up. So people have been going in there talking about. Last podcast with Jake, we talked a lot about like the warm-up and rest days. So kind of just wanted to talk to you a little bit more about like some of the myths and just programming and exercise. I know in personal trainers, that's one of the main things that we do. That's somewhat the difference between, I guess, everybody else out there, or what our expertise is finding a way of where does people fit in. So a lot of certifications have phases and zones, like where do people fit in that phase? How do we program through and some different aspects like that. So, I mean, just kind of talking about programming and exercise. We hear a lot of myths about, let's say, one thing through programming. Does people need to be sore So I'll just kind of throw you some myths out there. People need to be sore to get a good workout. Is that a great indicator? If they're not being sore, is it useless? Is it not worthwhile?
Yeah, that's a very common one, especially with, say like a first-time client or someone that hasn't been in the gym for a couple years. A lot of times through the workout, the question will come up: if I'm getting sore, or if I'm not getting sore, does that mean that I'm doing enough, or that I'm making progress, or that I'm growing muscle, or dropping fat, or what have you? The answer to that would be, I mean, soreness is definitely a good indicator of getting work done, but that doesn't always mean that you're doing the right work. So I've had plenty of workouts where I've not necessarily been super sore afterwards and still making progress. So the quick answer is going to be no. If you're getting sore, if you're not getting sore, that does not mean that you're not making progress or you're not having a good workout. To kind of simplify it, anybody can put anyone through a hard workout and destroy them. Does that mean that it was a good workout? Probably not. We could go downstairs and just run the stairs 100 times and just be wrecked. But what did we actually accomplish? Not really a whole lot. So.
Was there intention? Was there specific exercises you did based on that person's goals? And like you said, I could have somebody just sit there and do 100 push-ups. They're probably going to be pretty sore, and they might help out their chest, but is it really a good workout for them? Was that beneficial, worthwhile, or needed? And even if they, did 3 sets of 10 push-ups and wasn't sore, that might be a better for recovery or for their process or whatever it may be.
And another thing that we need to look at is, we typically with a program, it should be progressed at like a certain point each week, whether it be workout to workout or week to week or every other week or month to month or whatever. If you're getting too sore every time, then you can't necessarily make the progress the right way because it might hinder your next workout, or it could end up catching up to you. So after 2 to 3 weeks of really hard workouts, that fourth week, which should be your heaviest or should be where you accomplish the most in a session, you're now wrecked and you can't keep up with what you're supposed to do.
Right.
So in a sense, that would kind of be like going backwards a little bit because you can't do what was planned for you to do.
Right, regressive, right? Yeah,
Right.
so it can actually be, yeah. So, yeah, and we see that a lot with people that overly train and then they end up getting injured. And we kind of talked about this last time when we talked about recovery and all those aspects.
Right.
And they're constantly getting sore, and it's actually hindering from them to be able to put in a consistent high intensity, not high, like super high intensity, but a good intensity for their abilities and what they need to go through.
Right. And you hit the nail on the head right there when you say consistent. Like, that's consistency beats having crazy hard workouts twice a week and then like 2 that are maybe kind of halfway decent. If you are consistently hitting solid workouts over a long period of time, you're going to make way more progress than you would make if you go to the gym and you just kill yourself twice a week and then kind of fall back a little bit for the remainder of your sessions.
Yeah, especially if it's based off like energy and all those aspects. Now, I know we've talked a little bit about, once again, is kind of a great thing through personal training, so I'm not going to always try to pat us on the back. But one thing is also making adjustments based on somebody's feel. So sometimes there is a need for that. And if you have overtrained or you've had a bad day or different aspects, just kind of going through different programming perspectives, is that good to do or to like know in yourself and kind of read your body? Or how do you, like if a client comes in and there's something going on and you're saying, okay, this is not this person's normal type of energy.
Right.
Do you change those things up, or are you just like, here's the plan, we're sticking to it?
So I think the best route for that is to actually have the dialogue and ask them, how do you feel today? Do you think that like, give them the game plan, say, this is what I've got planned for you. Do you think you'll be able to keep up with it? I mean, if you're seeing the same person multiple times a week, you always know if they're in the mood that they usually are in whenever they come in, right? So if you can pick up on that body language or just like their attitude in general, and you think that it would be a good idea to maybe draw back on what you had planned in order for them to feel like they accomplished something, nothing's worse than going into the gym in a bad mood and then making your mood worse because you couldn't keep up with whatever you were supposed to do.
Yeah.
So in that instance, it would be best to kind of scale things back a little bit, see, maybe ask them like, what would you like to do? Maybe we can kind of turn this around and you can
how do you want to feel during this workout?
Right, yeah. Like, sometimes if someone's having a bad day, they might say, let's really push. I need the stress relief.
Yeah.
On the other side, they might say, I've had a really rough day. Let's just kind of go through the motions, and they might end up talking more about their problems instead of like exerting them on the weights. So
somebody come in like, it's been a horrible day at work. I slept 3 hours. Might not be the day to push a PR or not, but you might have next day and I got 8 hours of sleep. I feel wonderful today. You're like, well, we don't have a PR, but let's
go for it.
Let's crush it today. Let's do this or do those avenues. Let's try and push it a little bit harder than we normally would. So reading those things are really good.
Yeah.
So another thing, kind of going into talking about programming and kind of myths out there, do you have to have a super high heart rate to see results? Because I know a lot of people, we have my zone here in some of these things, and there's other companies out there that really use heart rate, but it sometimes has been to a disadvantage to personal trainers because so many people are focused on that. Right. And even us, we ask, how's your intensity? And they say this and that, and sometimes they're only relating that back to how hard their heart rate is, not how hard they push or how much load they use. So does people have to have like an extreme high heart rate and correlate more calories through that, or does that matter? Right.
No, you do not have to have. I mean, of course, it all depends on what kind of workout you're going for in that moment. If it's a conditioning style workout and you were trying to keep your heart rate elevated, then that, of course, you should probably monitor your heart rate and make sure that it's getting up to the level that you want it to be at. But if you're in the gym and you're constantly checking to see if your heart rate is up or if you're burning enough calories, like that is definitely a hindrance, especially for us as personal trainers, because then it kind of makes it like we could be doing, say, working on something strength-based and doing heavier squats. Your heart rate's not going to be that jacked up. It might be jacked up for a little bit, like right after the set, but it's going to drop off pretty quick.
Right.
Now, does that mean that you're not making progress or that you're not actually doing work? Well, really, you're just doing less because you're doing less reps if you're doing heavier squats. So your heart rate's not going to be jacked up, but you're still making progress towards that strength.
Right.
But it kind of does make it so that they have a visual to see if they're working hard. So in that aspect, it's a nice thing to monitor. It's also nice to monitor, like if you're between sets and you want to know how long you should rest. Then you can kind of say, you maxed out at 175 beats per minute. We're going to wait till you drop down to 120.
You can use it as a rest period versus like a time thing. You can actually literally individualize it and kind of like, I don't want you to get down back to 60%. And we're going back up, and it's a great way. You also can tell like kind of where the intensity is within that exercise, at least cardiovascular wise and conditioning wise.
Yeah, it gives us. I mean, it's a great tool. It gives us a good marker to like kind of know how hard you're working. But like I mentioned earlier, if we go downstairs and run stairs for an hour, you're going to burn more calories than you probably ever would doing an hour of strength training.
Right.
But you're only burning calories during that time. Yeah. So if someone were to come into the gym in the morning and get a hard workout and keep their MyZone on all day versus coming in, doing an hour of stairs and keeping their MyZone on all day after that, at the end of the day with the weight training, it's still going to be higher than it would be with the stairs.
Because a high intensity over like load strength training has been proven to increase metabolism up to 15% for the next 72 hours. That's why they say you should probably do some weightlifting every 2 to 3 days so you can always keep that up, which is important. If I said you could eat 10 or 15% more calories per week and still see results or maintain where you're at, that's probably a pretty good thing. It's like if I said, if I give you a 10 or 15% raise a week, would you like that? And that's a beautiful thing for weight training, but you're not always going to see that on a heart rate monitor. So they're not going to see that real time calorie burn. And so we see that sometimes with people when I ask like, hey, how's your intensity? Like, well, I wish it was a little bit higher. I have to dig in. Like, does that mean your intensity is not high enough because you don't think you're lifting enough weight or load? And a lot of times it's, oh, I want to do more circuits. I want to do those things. And we have to have those conversations and try to figure out a middle ground. But perception is not always what's exactly going on. I think that's a huge thing to teach people. You don't have to go nonstop. You don't have to go until you're sore. You don't have to be, even sweat's not a great indicator. So heart rate, sweat, and soreness are all not great indicators.
Not great. They can be indicators, but they're not the end-all be-all.
Right.
So, just like we talked about with soreness, even if your heart rate's not jacked up during the whole workout, that does not mean you're not working hard.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and it's all going to be individualized depending. If you're a sports athlete or your idea is wanting more conditioning and you're like, hey, Nick, I want to increase my conditioning, my work capacity, and an endurance factor, you might have more of that. But if someone said, hey, I want to build more lean body mass, have a stronger structure, increase my metabolism, you're going to say, hey, well, we're going to do some of those heavy, basic foundational movement patterns that are going to really help you out, and we're going to work on progressing the overload in those. Yeah. Which progressive overload is a good thing. What is progressive overload? And I think that's one of the biggest factors that people need to take into understanding when they're building programming.
I love that concept because you could have, so progressive overload is basically incremental adding of either sets, reps, weight, gradually over the course of time. So like traditionally we'll try and program out for like say 6 weeks at a time. Week 1 versus week 6, the goal would be to progressively load the weights, sets, reps, all that, so that at week 6 you're doing more than you were doing in week 1 of that program. And that's a concept that is sometimes tough for clients to be okay with. Because on days they're feeling good, they want to do more. On days they're not feeling as good, they want to do less. But we have to keep like the end goal in mind, right? So like if you could almost program backwards and say, where do we want to be 6 weeks from now? And then look at the steps going backwards to
the journey to get there, right? Reverse track.
So and a lot of times like you could have someone that's wanting to hit a PR, but they might be on the week 6 of their program like in a week or two. So, like, why would you want to take that squat PR in week 4 if you could kind of ride it out a little bit longer and get a better squat PR in week 6? So, keeping things kind of tame and making sure that you stay on that path of following the program and loading in nice increments versus just kind of going buck wild and just throwing weights on there and saying that felt good, let's just go up 50 pounds. So it has to be regulated. I mean, for long-term progress, that is.
A systematic approach.
Yes.
Yeah, that's how I look at a lot. Sometimes I'll err a little bit less. People's like, why are we doing this? I was like, because that's where we're going next, and I want to be able to accurately track the distance. And I think that's probably a big thing for people at home in case they don't, want to come in and get a personal trainer. And we're always trying to help out people just generally everywhere because that's our goal, is tracking and thinking about progressive overload for themselves. Where are they starting at? And then how do they increase that? And I think some of the things you said was it sets, reps, weight.
Yeah, just basically all the numbers that we keep track of.
So somebody should track at home and then progressively throughout time increase those numbers and increase those aspects, either if it's sets, reps, or weight.
Right. Yeah, progressive overload is you can almost look at it like warming up. If you go into the gym and you know that you're going to bench press, you're not going to throw 150 pounds on there right away. You're going to take incremental loads to get up to the point or wherever your working sets are supposed to be for that day. Well, progressive overload is the same thing. It's just spread out over the course of multiple workouts in multiple weeks. So you're not going to go into the gym and try and hit a PR like in the first week of a program. You should wait, make sure that everything is feeling good and everything lines up so that by the time it's you're at week 6 or at the end of a program and you're due for a PR or to retest some numbers, then without a doubt you should be on track.
Yeah, so I think that's one of the biggest takeaways for people just that are working out on their own, is to make sure that they're tracking their own progress and that they're actively trying to progress what they're doing, because we can all, myself guilty, I'm like, hold it, I've been doing 3 times 10 40-pound dumbbell curls for 5 years. Maybe I should increase that to 12 reps or do something to progress mine. I think that's where you don't see a lot of people tracking their weights at the gym, and I think they're just going through the motions.
Right. And I'm glad you said that, because if I could go back to when I first started lifting, I would really just go to the gym and just do whatever sounded fun. And a lot of the times I would end up doing way too much at the first half of the week, and then the second half of the week kind of fall off, and then I would restart every time. I did not have an approach. I did not follow a program. I'd just go to the gym and say, well, what can I do for chest? I guess I can bench press and do some push-ups. And so that sounded fun, so I would do that instead of maybe doing the things that I should have been doing that were less fun but would make me better.
Yeah.
So if I could go back, then I would follow a program. I would keep track of everything I did. I'd do a lot of things different, but those are the big ones. Because, if you asked me what I was doing when I was 18 to 22 years old, I got no idea. I was just showing up at the gym and just throwing stuff around with my buddies. I think
that's most people. I think that's one of the greatest benefits of having a personal trainer. Like I said, not always trying to push ourselves, but it's just having somebody that tracks and actively looking at where you're going in your program and what's the next steps and where's your next level. Where a lot of times for ourselves, we're not looking at that journey and we're not even tracking it. We're just going in. We're still getting a pump. It's probably beneficial. I'm still sore or I still get my heart rate up, but am I actually moving forward? And our body really has to make those adaptations. Right.
And of course, as a personal trainer, I am a big fan of hiring personal trainers. But to highlight that, I've got to coach myself. I don't do any of my own programming. Some portions of the year I will, but I've got a guy that will do everything for me. Yeah, it's not right,
No, it's not me.
That way it removes the stress. I don't have to track stuff.
Yeah.
I can just show up at the gym, pull out my phone, look at the program, follow it, and that's all I have to worry about. So that's the best part of having a personal trainer or a coach, is they handle all the stuff that's not fun.
Yeah. I did the same thing when I was prepping. So I had for nutrition, which I have a pretty, I'm pretty knowledgeable about program and nutrition.
Right.
But subjectively, we're not always going to look at things the same. And I might I'm not seeing the results. I need to drop my calories or up my weights or whatever it may be. And they look at it like, nope, you're good here. Just stay on the course. And so they're always going to do something a little bit outside of our opinions. And sometimes we have to let that go and trust the process.
Yeah. Yeah, for us, it's almost an ego thing. It's like we know so much, but at the same time, are we really the best person to coach ourselves? Probably not.
Yeah. So it's good if you have a coach, but if not, then please actively think about those things: progressing yourself, tracking your own weights, keeping your own self-autonomy, and looking at progressing things. Another thing out there sometimes we see with clients is where they're like, I'm not getting the same results as I was before. When I first started, I had all this progress. It's got to be this, or they start to get deterred because there's a thing called diminishing returns.
Right. Yeah.
And sometimes that's where also clients get stuck out or not clients, but people get stuck by themselves because they don't, and then they don't look like they don't know how to make those adjustments, where sometimes a personal trainer can. But I try to explain those to my clients. Like, yes, we're going to have a lot of good results. I hope it always is linear. But as you get closer to your genetic potential, those things are going to start to slow down a little bit.
Peaks and valleys. Peaks and valleys.
Yeah. So yeah.
But yeah, so with that, you know, whenever you first start training, you experience like what the newbie gains, right? So everything, like, you're gonna make progress faster because you're putting yourself through a new stimulus that you're not used to. So you're gonna make the adaptations to get better at those specific things.
Yeah.
So you're gonna make progress faster. Now, as your body gets accustomed to doing what you're doing, you're not gonna make progress as fast. You're still making progress. It just doesn't happen as quick. You know, there are like, I'll use powerlifting for example. Someone that first starts out, they might compete and then compete 6 months later and add 200 pounds to their total. Mm-hmm. A guy that's been doing it for 10, 15 years might spend an entire year adding 5 pounds to his total. So the better that you get at something, typically you have to work harder to keep the same amount of gains.
Right.
Now, as far as diminishing returns, a great example of this would be push-ups. So say you got someone at home and they start doing a push-up program, they're going to do 100 a day. Well, eventually 100 feels like nothing, so they have to do 120, and then 140, and then 150. And if that's all they're doing, then the only way to get the same response is to do more.
Right.
Well, if you're not doing them very well, you're going to create posture issues. Mm-hmm. So at that point, yeah, you might feel like you're getting a hard workout, but you're also doing things to your posture or doing things to maybe other muscle groups that are going to cause imbalances. And at that point would be when you need to completely switch gears and maybe pick something else like pull-ups or sit-ups or you know, something different than sticking with the same thing and just adding more reps.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's also really great for general public and also our clients. Like, mm-hmm. If one, you want to make sure that you're doing things in proper form, and that's a big part of this, because basically you're training yourself improperly. You're just teaching your body to do something bad and exacerbating a problem. But right. Two is like, you might not always see the same results. You might not get the same calorie burn. So you're like, why did I burn 700 calories in the beginning and now I'm only burning 500 calories? Or also as you're going, you might start to, you know, since you're not making all those results, get deterrent, you know, and start feeling right. bad about things, and
right.
realize that it is common. It's not bad. You can still always make progress, and maybe that's in your own individualized program. If you're not working with a trainer, look at it and say, okay, maybe I should make some changes, because that's basically the only thing that you can really do to continue to have high gains or returns, is to make adjustments and try to do some progression. Yeah. But regardless of anybody, regardless, even if you adjust your program, you're going to start to see less returns than you do in the beginning, mm-hmm. Just because that's part of the body. In the beginning, a lot of it's just central nervous system, the body just learning.
You're just getting better at the movements, literally getting better at the movements.
Right,
like a free throw or a basketball player practicing free throws. Like it's
right.
the same
muscle
kind of
memory,
concept.
the motor units learning,
right.
And then you have some physiological adaptation, and then you get some diminishing returns, and then there's reversibility, which means basically if you don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah.
So hopefully nobody's out there like that. But
right.
making adjustments is big.
Yeah, and I do understand like that being a question, you know, like you said, burning 700 calories doing something, and then a few months later only burning 500 doing the exact same thing. And people get upset about that, and they shouldn't, because really that's a good thing. It just mm-hmm. means you're just more efficient at what you're doing. Your body doesn't have to work as hard to get the same work done. So
your body's adapting.
Right, yeah. So, and that's the name of the game with the gym in general, is forcing your body to make the adaptation so that you can do things better.
But you do have to progressively load or progressively increase the intensity to continue to get those same results. So people get determined with that. And so I'm normally upfront with them, just like, hey, you're going to see a lot of great results in the beginning. We're going to celebrate those, but diminishing returns happen. That's the beautiful thing about having a personal trainer, is because we're going to look at those and we're going to try to continue to progress or make the adjustments we need to, where sometimes people on their own, I think, don't. Or they don't know what the next steps to go to, and sometimes that's reevaluating your program. They've shown even just changing your days around and not even changing the exercises mm-hmm. can sometimes change the way that we progress on our workouts. So doing leg day on Monday versus Friday, even though it's the exact same plan.
So I've got a question for you.
Oh no, I'm on the hot seat.
So we usually do, like I'd like to do multiple weeks at a time of programming, right? So typically pick exercises and stick with those for a couple of weeks.
Right.
Now, what would you tell someone that, say, they're getting bored with what they're doing, but it's only maybe on the 4th week, you know, and so you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. So that's a good question too. And I was thought, as I was saying, like sometimes we have to make adjustments to our programs. Mm-hmm. We also have to give them time to progress upon them, and for our body to learn those and make sure that we're progressing. Diminishing returns is something that's very possible, but it takes a long time. Like I said, we're getting closer to our genetic potential. So our genetic potential is pretty high for everybody.
Yeah.
Regardless of what your genetics
higher
is.
Than you think.
A lot higher than you think, yes. And so you have to give programming time. You have to give it opportunities to work through those. But you have to throw enjoyment in there. So if there's some things that you can do, but that's a problem within our industry. Sometimes people want to do too many different crazy things. They want to make too many adjustments too quickly. They worry too much about their client's perception of those things. And I think just being open and honest with your clients and saying, hey, these are why we're doing this. We have to progress through those. We have to give you a little bit of time. But then also looking at it, and if somebody's not happy or having fun or it's time to, then make those changes. So it's really a kind of individual per person thing. But yeah, we see a lot of people like, oh, I did this for 2 weeks. I want to do something else. Like, no. We still gotta learn a little bit more. We still gotta go through it. You still gotta have a full abilities to get through it, and you can still go. I mean, a lot of clients could do the same program and just actively progress, like we talked about, through sets and reps for a very long time. And still see a lot of success. Some of my most successful clients' programs haven't changed a tremendous amount over years, and some of them, change a lot depending on different goals.
Yeah. So just like if you do something for too long, it can end up creating diminishing returns. You get used to it, you should probably change it up.
You should progress it somehow.
But on the opposite end, if you don't do something long enough, then you never make those adaptations. If you're always doing something different, then your body's it doesn't know what it's supposed to get better at.
Yeah, it can make some changes, but just like you said a great example, shooting free throws.
Yeah.
If I shot from every different place on the court, but my goal was to get better at free throws, I'll probably become a better shooter because I'm still shooting the ball.
Yeah.
But will I get better at that exact point where I'm starting to learn how to do that exact shot?
Yeah.
Probably not. Yeah. And that's where we need to make sure that people create mastery and that they progress that to a high level before they move on to the next stage.
Mastery is a good term. Like you can still get a good workout by doing a huge variety of things, but you're never truly going to perfect certain movements if you're always bouncing around all over the place.
We're probably almost getting to our time. It's funny because everybody's always like, I don't know, how am I going to come in there and talk in 15 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 minutes? And I'm always like, wow, most of the time I find that we haven't got through half this stuff.
Yeah.
So I know there's still more things to like programming, and I think that's kind of what we're trying to present to everybody today is muddle through some of the myths or some things that they could just do in their everyday life to make sure that they're progressing and that they're programming themselves. Is there anything else that's kind of rumbling around in Big Nick's mind over there?
Not in particular. I just know that like after the whole pandemic thing, programming has become more of a thing that I've talked about with my clients more often.
Right.
Because they had questions, like before that time we were doing this, how come we're not doing that now? And it's like, well, we want to try and take advantage of the type of detraining effect that you've had. So we're going to do some different movements that we haven't done in a while, get better at those, and then we'll be back to doing the more complicated sets and reps or the more difficult movements later on.
Yeah.
So, no, I think the big takeaway is you should definitely follow programming, because otherwise you have no idea if you're making progress or not, and you're just relying on your own mind to recall what you did last time.
Right, intuitively lifting, which you can get away with a little bit of that. We even do ourselves like, that's been easy for you, let's go to that one, but it's very, very difficult, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you're just like trying to go to the gym and you just want to get a quick pump, then intuitive lifting is totally cool.
Right.
But if you have like specific goals in mind or a specific deadline that you have to reach certain goals by, good luck going to the gym and just intuitive lifting all the time, because you could get there, but the chances are a lot less than they would be if you follow a program.
So I think some of the big takeaways is we learned a little bit about some myths that heart rate, sweating, and calorie burn and soreness is not always great. They are indicators, but they're not always great indicators. If your exercise is worthwhile, if you're making gains, you're going to see results. And two, that having a systematic plan, progressive overloading, tracking a program is a really great idea for anybody. And if you do struggle with that, or if it's a struggle for you, that hiring a coach is not a bad idea if that's something that's feasible for you, because they're going to do that for you and look into it and maybe have a different perspective because they're on the outside looking in and have an education, hopefully, to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But depending, a qualified coach, because we see that with a lot of personal trainers where they're not tracking anything, they're not looking at progression, they're not looking at your next steps, and they're just kind of throwing stuff together because it's fun and creative.
Or they're just having you do what they do themselves.
Right.
So, But yeah, I think we pretty much covered all the bases there. I mean, there's tons more that we could talk about, but we'll save that for another time.
Yeah, well, the good thing is we get to do this weekly, so I'm sure that we can come up more. But
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think we're good on time. That was always fun. There's some good stuff out there.
Yeah, thanks for letting me come on.
Yeah, no problem. So we'll continue to rock and roll.
Cool.
Anything else, boss, before we close up?
No, I would say that if anyone out there has specific questions that they want addressed in the future, let us know.
That's a great idea. Yeah, I mean, if you guys have programming stuff, put in comments. We're going to be pushing this out on Facebook. It'll be out there next week. There's other avenues of listening to this, but yeah, comment. That way we can come in here and we can have questions, or I can look for the professional to be able to come in here and actually do that for you. So, and that could be Nick. So
maybe.
All right, thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime.
Love you guys. Have a great one.
Bye.
Bam. Thank you for listening to the Healthy Living Wichita podcast with GoTimeTraining. If you enjoyed today's show and want to get started with your own fitness journey, I'd love to help kickstart your goals. How do 4 60-minute personal training sessions for $99 with me sound? Head over to www.gotimetraining.com/podcast to claim yours. I can't wait to meet you.